Today's project is a viewer's choice. Sometimes I like to grab some of the things that I've saved on Facebook Marketplace, put them into reel and let people vote which one I should try to get. So this was one of those pieces. And if you saw the reel, it's number 2 and it got a lot of votes. And you know, when I first initially saw it, I was like, this is so unique. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. And so he initially had asked over 200 for it. Then it went down to 180. I asked him if he'd take 150 and he took it. So I asked him what the story was on it, and he didn't have one because he just buys out storage units. So it was in a storage unit. And so obviously left behind, but it's so unique. Pretty sure it's obviously Art Deco era, but it is missing the mirror. So I don't know how much it's going to cost to get that replaced, but it's so unusual. And I really do occasionally like to take very unusual pieces, try to restore them, see what I can make of them. But I'm excited. I think it'll be a really fun piece. And so let's go.
So you can see that I'm missing the mirror, which is probably my biggest concern. I do have the clips that hold it on the sides. It's not secured to the base though, so I'm gonna have to figure that out as well. Overall, I have just a lot of repairs that need to be done, small things. You see that base is like a different color, so I don't know if it's painted or stained. You can see I've got some veneer damage, some pretty significant areas. I have that stain on the base. So a lot of like little repairs, but yet they all kind of add up. Like that stain, I have no idea what it is. So I'm going to have to work on that. But it's such a cool piece that I'm willing to just dive in and see what I can do because I think it's so cool. I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure if this is painted or if this is stained, but I'm just going to start by taking all of the hardware off, kind of get an assessment during that process and see what we can do with it. These clips are held on by very tiny little screws. So I have a very small screwdriver I picked up somewhere and I was able to get all of these little clips off. So I'll probably go ahead and spray paint them later, but I'm going to go ahead and take all the doors off. I'll label the hinges so I know where to put it back. You can see on the interior, I forgot to show you that, there's a lot of staining on the interior. So I will probably paint out the interior just because I think it would look a lot better. In the beginning, I like to kind of assess a piece and try a few solvents to see if I can go really simple. Do I need to do a full strip? Can I use like denatured alcohol? If it's a shellac finish, this was probably a lacquer finish. So I thought, well, let me try lacquer thinner and see if that will kind of dissolve this finish and get it down to raw so that I can just restain it. And it did the trick. So just a little bit of steel wool and the lacquer thinner. There honestly wasn't much finish left on it. And so I think that's why there was so much damage on it. There's nothing protecting it. So the lacquer thinner worked great. I just went over the entire body. This is 002-aught of the steel wool with the lacquer thinner. And that will just dissolve any of that finish. The lacquer thinner obviously didn't work on the base. I'm not sure if this is paint or if it's some type of a stain, but I'm going to use Smart Strip as a stripper. It's a non-toxic stripper. You just simply put it on, let it do its thing. I'd like to wait about at least an hour. Then I came back with some steel wool, a soft wire brush, and got off as much of that as I could. Now you can see it's still very red, and so I'm not really sure why it's so red. I don't know if it was maybe some pigment left from the paint. I am using acetone as well just to get off the rest of that finish. So here it is after the lacquer thinner and after stripping the base. You can see again it's very red. I still have that really dark stain, and so I'm going to have to address that and figure out what I'm going to do. And on the interior, I did try some acetone to try to get those stains out. It didn't come. That's why I'm considering painting the interior. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to patch all of this veneer. Now this is a skill I have just been working on over the last year or so. It's not something I'm a pro at yet, but I'm getting better the more I try. So I have all of these sample assorted packs that I picked up at my local woodcraft. They also have them on Amazon. I'll link some in the description. But I'm just trying to find a similar wood grain and a similar tone. So you see I sprayed it with some water because I want to see, okay, well, if I stain it or if I just simply seal it, is it going to be a similar tone? So I found one that I felt was pretty similar, and now I'm going to use a razor blade. I scored it along the sides, and I'm going to take out the veneer in the middle. I'm trying to keep it kind of together because I could use some of that to patch in some small areas. I think a chisel would be better, but I don't have a chisel, so I'm using a long razor blade. So a chisel is on my wish list. I need to get a set of those. Just sometimes, you just find things that work better, and this worked, but I think a chisel would be better. Once I have all of the veneer out in the section that I'm going to replace, I give it a good sand. If I need to fill it in, I'll fill it in with some wood fill as well, and then I'll be ready to do my patching. So I'm trying to determine what section of the veneer I want to use, which way it'll kind of line up. You can see that grain looks pretty good. So I am going to fill it in with a little bit of wood fill just to make sure that it's nice and flat. And while that dries, I'm just going to move on to a couple other areas. So I have a tiny area here that I can use some of that old veneer that I pulled off from the other section, and I can use that to fill in these tiny little gaps. I put some painter's tape over the area that needs to be filled in, and I'm filling that area in with a pencil. I'll transfer that to the veneer, cut it out, and glue it on. I think it's great when you can use the veneer from the project on some of these areas, because then it can really make it look a lot more seamless because it matches. So for this area, I decided to cut out a triangle. So I could have gone all the way across, but I decided I'm going to try a triangle. I'm trying to do the least amount of cutting away as possible. So I've seen people do just like triangles. So I'm going to try that. We'll see if that works. I maybe should go all the way across, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, do the diagonal, pick out those pieces, then I'll replace it with a new piece of veneer. So you can see it's a slightly different tone, but very similar wood grain. So once that sets up, then I'll be able to do some ingrain painting, and I think I can make that blend into the surrounding wood. We'll see. You'll see over the course of this video, I have a lot of veneer to patch. So you see that's a really large area on the bottom part. I'm going to do the exact same process, make a little template with my painter's tape, fill that in with a pencil mark, transfer that to the new veneer, and then glue it in. Now I'm going to start the sanding process on the whole thing. I'm going to start with 80. If there's any areas that still have some finish left on it, then I'll go up to 120, and then I'll stop at 180. You can see I had some rings there, some scratches. So I'm just going to work a little bit harder on that area with the 80 grit to really get those areas sanded smooth. This area was really difficult to sand because you can see that's a very small area and you want to go with the grain. So I had to use some contouring strips and I had to use some sandpaper wrapped around my Bondo spreader just to try to get into those areas and go with the grain. This veneer is on the top, on the side with the curve. I had to end up taking off both sides and repatching it with new veneer. After those patches dried up, I'm just going to trim them down, sand that whole area. I'm going to go through the same protocol, start at 80, just a little bit. There's not much finish left. Then I'll go right up to 120, stop at 180. You can see once I put some liquid on it, it's a pretty good match. I mean, you can see it a little bit, but it's really pretty good. I just have a little bit of Ingrain painting to do. I'm going to continue the sanding process all the way around the rest of the piece. So are you tired of watching me do veneer patching yet? I told you there was a lot of areas. So this one, I just had to be patient, and I just continued to go around the entire piece, working on little areas and trying to do the best that I can. This is a small area, so I decided to use wood epoxy for this one. This is Mohawk, this is in walnut. It's a 2-part epoxy. You cut out what you need, and then you're just going to mix it together really well, apply it, and then let it dry. Then you'll sand it back. Then I can do some Ingrain painting to make it blend into the surrounding wood. I got the glass replaced at a local glass company called Robinson Glass. It was $150, but they did a fabulous job. They went ahead and installed it for me, which I didn't want them to initially because I hadn't refinished the whole piece yet. But in hindsight, I'm really glad that they did because it was heavy. I don't know that I would want to have messed with trying to install it. But I did have to sand back all of that wood. So you can see I'm using just sandpaper, some of my contour pads, and there really honestly wasn't much finish left on this one either. So I started with 80. You can see it went really fast. Did the exact same thing, 80, 120, 180, went all the way around, and then it was ready to stain. So this wood was a little bit lighter than the actual dressing table itself. So I needed to kind of go darker so I could match it. This was beautiful wood. So I decided to use dye stain. And so I thought, well, I don't know how. I have both light brown and I have medium brown. So I'm a little cautious. So I thought, well, let's just start with the light brown and see what kind of tone that gives me. And if I think it's too light, then I can always layer medium brown on top of it. So I had to be really careful. Then since they had already installed the mirror, I had to make sure that I didn't get anything on the mirror. I didn't want to mess it up. You can see I'm using an artist brush, and then I'm just using a staining pad, and I just apply it, and then I just wipe off the excess. Believe it or not, I still have more areas to sand. You can see I just have a lot of little areas that have to go through the exact same sanding protocol. So just going to continue to work my way around the piece. I had another small little area I decided to use the wood epoxy for. And then I'm going to also use a little bit of the epoxy on the repair that I did that was triangular. I'm just going to try to fill in some of those gaps around it just to try to continue to make it look seamless with the surrounding wood. Now it's time to address that stain. I don't know what kind of stain it is, but I'm going to start with wood bleach. So this is oxalic acid. You mix it with really hot water, you apply it, you let it set, and then once you're happy with it, then you're going to rinse it 3 times with water. And that will neutralize it and stop it from bleaching. After it was dry, I cleaned it with a 50-50 mixture of denatured alcohol and water, and it really looked very good. I'm going to use my blend all sticks to fill in a little bit of that area where I added the veneer because there was just some tiny gaps. So I'm just heating up the sticks a little bit because they're waxy, and it'll help it kind of fill in those areas. Usually you wait and do your blend all sticks after you've stained a piece, but I'm actually not going to stain it. I'm going to try to just oil it. So what I've done is I've kind of sprayed it so I know the color that I'm going for. So I'm going to try to do some of my color corrections now before I actually put the oil on it. Try to get as close as I can, and then I will oil it. And then if I need to do some more touch-ups, I'll do another round after the first coat of wax, and then just keep working on it until I get it. With the blend all sticks, I like to start light, and then I continue to blend it in. And then you just have to kind of sometimes do several rounds. So you do a layer and then you set it. I use Mohawk's Easy Vinyl Sealer to seal it. You could also use lacquer, but you got to seal it because they are waxy. So I do one layer and then I seal it. And then I go to another area. Then I come back when it's dried and I do another layer. So it's just kind of this, kind of like you're just painting. You're just painting in the grain. I'm going to paint the interior, so I need to prime this. This is like not nice wood. It's probably pine or something. It's not in that great a condition. So for my primer, I'm just using spray shellac. It'll help make sure that I don't have any bleed through or any kind of odors that might be in it. I mean, this piece is probably over 100 years old, so shellac is a great primer. It doesn't always work well with every paint, but I'm using Fusion's mineral paint, and it plays really nicely with Fusion. This is a gorgeous color. This is called Chesler, and it's a very deep teal blue color, very easy to paint with. I do like Fusion. It's a very thick paint. When I'm hand painting something, I really do like to use Fusion. It actually sprays beautifully too, but in this small space, I like to not have to do a ton of coats. And so this, I can easily do 2 coats and it will be full coverage, no problem. I mean, even after 1 coat, it usually looks pretty good, but 2 coats is going to give you beautiful coverage. The base did not match the rest of the piece, so I'm going to apply Antique Walnut Gel Stain by General Finishes, and I'm hoping that that will kind of blend it in. Now for the body, I'm just going to oil it. I love Osmo's Poly-X oil. This is a hard wax oil, super easy to apply. You can use several different applicators. It really depends on the level of durability. If you need it to be really durable, you probably want to apply it with a paintbrush or a roller. You can see I'm using like a Bondo spreader to just spread that oil around. The different applicators will give you a different level of durability. Once you apply it, just let it set for a couple seconds, and then you do need to wipe off the excess, or otherwise it'll get all gummy on you. So make sure you wipe it on, let it set, and then make sure you wipe off the excess. I like to use the blue shop rags because they're lint-free. I almost forgot about the door. So I had to make sure I sanded it down, did the exact same protocol, and then I'm ready to just simply oil it up. So this kind of wood, man, it just doesn't even need stain. It's just so good. It has that little burl area. Is that not just gorgeous? I mean, I just love it. I mean, it doesn't need anything. Oil is all it needs. So now I still have a few more touch-ups. I'm just going to take you through the time lapse. You see that I'm just simply filling that in. You're just simply like drawing in the grain. So you just have to kind of trick the eye so that it doesn't know that that is a patch. And then make sure you seal it up, and then we'll be ready for our second coat of oil. The old hardware left a big ring around the hardware hole, and this is the new hardware I want to use, so I need to cover it up. So my solution for that is to take a washer, and I'm going to spray paint it my favorite gold, and then once that's dry, then I'm going to use that as a back plate. So I'm going to use it actually on both sides because there's kind of a big hole, a big area on the back sides you can see that's kind of messed up. So I have two washers, so that's going to cover up the back side, and then I'm going to put the washer over the screw, and then I will attach my hardware on top of that. And I think it looks rather intentional, don't you? So let's look back at the before. This was a very interesting piece. I have never seen anything like this. I think that's why it drew my attention right away. I could tell the wood grain was going to be beautiful. Obviously, so many repairs. I didn't know anything about that stain. I didn't know if I could patch all of the missing veneer. I had no idea what was up with that base, why it was a different color. But so many little patches of veneer that needed to be fixed. So it was a little daunting, but this is a skill I'm working on. So you only get better at doing something if you just do it over and over and over again. I'm not a pro. I've only been at this veneer patching for maybe a year at the most. And so after all that work, here's the finished product. What do you think? Isn't it beautiful? The mirror, I love it. It's hard to kind of visualize what it's going to look like, but that mirror just makes it. And the tones in the wood, they're just so rich. There's no stain on that. It's all just oil. And so just being able to bring out the natural beauty. Up close, you can see some of my repairs. Am I 100% pleased with them? No. I think the tone is a little bit too dark, but I probably should start experimenting with some toners by Mohawk. You can see the stain, it's gone, looks great. Veneer patching and ingrain painting is a skill I'm still learning. I think when you're back from it and you didn't know where the patches are, my eye goes right to them, so I know exactly where they are. But I don't know that some people would even notice where they were. Obviously, some people would, but I think overall, I think it's a beautiful, unique piece. The interior worked out great. I love that tone, beautiful pop of color. I love the hardware. I think it works really well with the Art Deco vibe of this piece. And there's a lot of tones going on. You remember the base was a different color. That support piece in the middle is a different color. So lots of different tones, but I think we kind of got it where I wanted it to be. Overall, I'm really pleased. It's a beautiful piece and I love how it turned out. So enjoy some of these videos, but come back at the end because I need your help with one more thing.
But I'm not done yet. I need your input. It didn't come with any kind of components to attach the mirror to the dressing table. And it's an unusual configuration, so I need your help. How do I do it? Let me show you. So here's the hole, and it goes all the way through. So it's not like I can, put a metal rod in there or anything. Somebody mentioned maybe a dowel rod, but here it is on the base. There's a corresponding hole underneath there, but then there's also this slit. I have a hole here. So there's the hole, and then there's also a hole there. So I wondered if maybe there was, I don't know, if there was a metal piece. I mean, this is a very heavy piece. This mirror is very heavy. And so it needs to be something that is strong enough that can hold it, because the space where I went ahead and put something in, the space is only about 2 inches where the hole is. This area right here is holding the entire frame up. So I don't know if there's supposed to be something there, like a piece of metal or wood. I don't know.
For reference, the hole is about 1/4 inch, and that is 1 1/8.
So let me know if you have any ideas on how to attach them safely, because, that's a lot of weight. So leave your suggestions in the comments. Tell me what you think. Did you like this project? I did. So much that I'm keeping it for myself. So anyway, tell me what you think, and thanks so much for watching.